Hi and welcome. Today's video is going to be all about the pattern changes I made to turn the Corin top into the Corin dress. Now, if you missed last week's video, I went over my muslins and talked about why I made the changes I did, and then showed off my finished garments. So if you missed that video, I'll put the link in the description below. Now today is how I altered the pattern based on my fit notes from those muslins. So they're a really good pair of videos together. You can see why I made the changes and how they looked on the muslin, and then what I did to the pattern in this video. So let's get started. All right, now I will be showing you these pattern changes in a small scale. It's easier for you to see what I'm drawing on these pieces of paper if it's in mini. When I'm working on the full-size pattern, the camera has to go so far up to get everything in that it doesn't really catch the lines I'm drawing. So if you remember, the first thing I did was make a muslin of the pattern as drafted. That way I could decide where I wanted to make my changes. So I did that, and then the first thing I had to do was I decided where my yoke was going to go. So I just draw in the yoke line, and that is perpendicular to the center back. And the reason for this yoke line is that I want to widen the back piece to give it extra room for me to walk and just more of a flowy silhouette. Now, the next thing I did after I decided where my yoke was going to fall was I decided how much I wanted to add to the back. And on mine, I did 4 inches. So this is mini, so we'll do 3/4 of an inch. So to make my pleat, I'm just adding to the back below the yoke, and then I'm going to extend that yoke line out. And I'm not using the back elastic, so I'm just going to X that out so I don't accidentally do anything with it. Now, if you wanted to pleat this, you would just notch right here and form a pleat. I'm going to gather, but I don't want to gather too close to the armhole. I think that is fiddly, looks weird, and feels weird. So I'm just going to put a little notch. I believe I did it 1.5 inches in on the original full-size one. So we just have a notch here so that we can match things up when we're easing this area in. Now from here, I'm going to cut along my yoke line, and we need to add seam allowance to these edges because if you sew them together, they're not going to be right. So we're going to add our 1/2 inch seam allowance to each of these. All right, so to do that, I'm just going to tape a little paper on. And a little here. Then we just redraw our seam allowance. Now I'm just drawing in 1/4 inch. Try to be a little bit proportional. You will be adding 1/2. Draw that up. Add our seam allowance to the bottom of the yoke. And then here we need to match these edges between the two patterns. So to do this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold the seam allowance to the wrong side of the yoke, and I'm just going to align it here. I'm going to take my needle point tracer, and I'm going to trace over the seam allowance of the yoke and the back right here. And the reason that I'm doing this is because everything's going to fold up into the yoke, and this way everything will align at this edge when you do that. Draw that edge in. And then the only thing we have left to do is to lengthen our pattern. Now the last thing we need to do to the back is to lengthen it. So you'll have measured when you tried on your original muslin how long you want to add on. And it's a rectangle, so you can always add a little more and then chop it off. It's really easy to adjust the length. So I'm going to extend the center back down. On my version, I added 14 inches to the length. So we'll just add 5 because this is a little fake one. I'm just going along the hem, marking my 5 inches. And then we're just going to follow the seam line down. Now, before we cut anything, we're going to make some changes to the front. All right, so here we have the front. I am putting the elastic in, and in my muslin, I decided to raise it 1 inch. On the pattern, this is 1 inch wide, so all I did was move it up. And then these became my new points. Cross these out. Now the last thing we need to do to the front is lengthen it. So I did 5 inches. So I'm just going to extend the pattern down, mark my 5 inches. Extend the seam line. And now what we need to do is we need to walk these edges. So we're walking the seam line of both edges. And walking a pattern is just like it sounds, walking the seam lines to make sure everything lines up. Possibly that should be its own video because it's such a useful technique, but here's how we do it. I'm going to flip my pattern over. And we're just going to walk the pattern to make sure they hit at the right point. They do, which is very hard to, well, I think you can see they both align right here. If I fold this corner back, oops, you'll see the 2 points hit right perfectly. So our seam lines are the same length. So now all we need to do is cut. Now this notch here, we're going to transfer up so it's on the cut line. That way you can mark it while you're working. And then finally our yoke. We're going to do the same thing with this notch. And then here we have our adjusted pattern pieces. Now for the back, again, we're gathering so the yoke does not meet all the way. And I'm just going to gather between these points. So I'll put my gathering stitches in here and then ease it into this part of the yoke. So after this, you're just going to cut it out of your fabric and sew. The only difference between this and the instructions will be the gathering, or if you want to do a pleat, the pleat here. And if you do want to do a pleat, you'll bring your notch up to the top here, and this part will pleat in like so. So that is it. All you need is these 3 pieces and you are on your way to making your own Corin dress. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Next week, I'll be back with a much anticipated video on how to stop your boxy tops from moving towards the back, kind of like choking you a little bit. This is not going to help the tops you've already made because it is a pattern adjustment. But going forward, your boxy tops will be awesome. So I will see you back here for that. And again, any questions, just let me know. Bye-bye.